When Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, told Stanford MBA students that improving communication skills could literally increase their lifetime worth by 50%, most people dismissed it as another billionaire platitude. But here is what Buffett actually understood, that most men completely miss. The difference between being heard and being respected is not what you say, but how you command the room before you even open your mouth. Three of the world's wealthiest individuals, Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, and Elon Musk, all share one common trait that made them billions. They mastered the art of sophisticated communication. But this is not about memorizing fancy vocabulary or copying some fictional character's accent. This is about wielding language like a precision instrument that opens doors, commands respect, and positions you exactly where you belong, at the top. You see, there is a fatal mistake that 90% of men make when they try to speak with class. They think sophistication means using bigger words or talking louder. But sophisticated men understand something far more powerful. True class reveals itself not in what you say, but in how you make others feel when you speak. The man who interrupts constantly, who dominates every conversation, who name drops to inflate his ego, he reveals his insecurity with every word. Watch how the most powerful men in any room behave, and you will notice something fascinating. They listen more than they speak, and when they do speak, every word carries weight because they have earned the right to be heard. Think about it. When someone truly commands respect, people lean in to catch their words, not lean back to escape them. But here is where most advice about sophisticated communication goes completely wrong. Everyone tells you to be polite and use good manners, as if elegance is some antiquated checklist from your grandmother's etiquette book. That is peasant thinking. True sophistication is about understanding power dynamics and using communication as your competitive advantage. Research reveals that men who speak with direct, authoritative language are perceived as more confident and competent in professional settings. But, and this is crucial, there is a difference between being authoritative and being aggressive. The sophisticated man never needs to raise his voice because his presence alone commands attention. Let me tell you what separates the men who get promoted, who close the biggest deals, who attract the highest quality people into their lives, from those who remain invisible. They have mastered what I call the 3 pillars of commanding communication. First pillar, intentional silence. The most sophisticated individuals know that strategic pauses in conversation create anticipation and demonstrate confidence. When you speak continuously without pause, you reveal desperation for attention. But when you allow silence to exist, you control the rhythm of the conversation. Think about the last time you watched a truly powerful man speak. He does not rush to fill every gap in conversation. He lets his words breathe, lets others absorb what he has said. That silence is not empty, it is charged with authority. Second pillar, precision over volume. Warren Buffett's communication style focuses on clarity and simplicity, avoiding unnecessary jargon that prevents straightforward understanding. The sophisticated man never uses 10 words when 3 will do. He does not hide behind corporate buzzwords or industry jargon because he understands that confusion is the enemy of influence. When Elon Musk sent that famous email to Tesla employees, he said exactly this: anyone at Tesla can and should email or talk to anyone else according to what they think is the fastest way to solve a problem. No fluff, no corporate speak, pure direct communication that gets results. Third pillar, elevated listening. This is where most men completely fail. Sophisticated communication involves active engagement through eye contact, asking insightful questions, and demonstrating understanding through body language. But elevated listening goes beyond just hearing words. You are reading the subtext, understanding the emotions behind what someone is saying, and responding to both the spoken and unspoken message. Here is what this looks like in practice. When someone tells you about a challenge they are facing, the unsophisticated response is to immediately offer solutions or share your own similar experience. The sophisticated response is to ask one precise question that shows you understand the deeper issue. Something like, "What aspect of this situation concerns you most?" That question demonstrates that you are thinking, not just reacting. Now let me address something that will make you uncomfortable. Many men think that oversharing personal information or constantly steering conversations back to themselves demonstrates openness and confidence. This is completely wrong. The sophisticated man understands that mystery is magnetic. He shares selectively, strategically, and always with purpose. When someone asks you about your weekend, the unsophisticated response is a detailed breakdown of every mundane activity. The sophisticated response might be, "I spent some time at the gallery downtown. They have a remarkable exhibition on mid-century architecture. Notice what just happened there? You revealed taste, cultural awareness, and intellectual curiosity without broadcasting your entire life story." But here is the secret that nobody talks about. Sophisticated communication adapts to different contexts and audiences while maintaining consistency in core values and standards. You do not speak to your business partner the same way you speak to your nephew. You do not approach a formal presentation the same way you approach a casual dinner conversation. The sophisticated man reads the room and adjusts his communication style accordingly, but he never compromises his fundamental standards. David Beckham exemplifies this perfectly. Whether he is speaking to reporters after a match or addressing a charity gala, his communication style adapts to the context while maintaining that underlying sophistication that makes him magnetic to both men and women. Research shows that men who demonstrate genuine interest in others' perspectives and ask thoughtful follow-up questions are perceived as more charismatic and trustworthy. This is not about manipulation. This is about understanding that the most powerful position in any conversation is often the one asking the right questions. Think about the last time you were truly impressed by someone's communication. I guarantee it was not because they talked about themselves for 30 minutes. It was because they made you feel heard, understood, and intellectually stimulated. They asked you questions that made you think differently about yourself or your situation. Here is a technique that will immediately elevate your presence in any conversation. The 3-second rule. Before you respond to anything anyone says, count 3 seconds in your head. This does 3 things. It shows you are considering their words carefully, it prevents you from interrupting, and it creates a natural pause that makes your eventual response carry more weight. But sophistication in communication is not just about technique. It is about developing genuine intellectual curiosity. The sophisticated man continuously educates himself across diverse subjects to engage in meaningful conversations that demonstrate cultural awareness and depth. This means reading beyond your industry, understanding art, history, global events, and human psychology. Not to show off, but to have genuine substance behind your words. Now let me tell you about the biggest communication mistake that destroys respect faster than anything else, talking about money, possessions, or achievements as if they define your worth. People who constantly mention the cost of their possessions or name-drop their connections often do so to compensate for insecurity. The sophisticated man lets his quality speak for itself. He does not announce that his watch costs more than most people's cars. He simply wears quality and lets others draw their own conclusions. If you want to be treated like a man of high caliber, you must understand this fundamental truth. Respect is not demanded. It is earned through consistent demonstration of value. And value in communication comes from making others feel elevated, not diminished, by your presence. Here is something that will separate you from 95% of men. Master the art of the graceful exit. Sophisticated individuals know when to end conversations while they are still engaging, leaving others wanting more rather than desperately trying to escape. When the conversation reaches a natural high point, when you have shared something meaningful or made a genuine connection, that is when you gracefully transition or conclude. I have truly enjoyed our conversation, but I should let you get back to your evening. This leaves a positive impression and demonstrates that you value both your time and theirs. The sophisticated man also understands the power of the strategic compliment. This is not about empty flattery. That is what insecure men do. The sophisticated compliment is specific, genuine, and demonstrates your attention to detail. Instead of "nice shirt," you might say, "That fabric has an interesting texture. Is it Italian?" This shows you notice quality and have enough knowledge to ask an intelligent question. Effective communication is always about understanding the other person, not about winning arguments or forcing your opinions on others. The moment you turn conversation into competition, you have lost the sophistication game entirely. The sophisticated man can disagree without being disagreeable, can stand firm in his convictions without attacking others' character. When someone says something you disagree with, the unsophisticated response is immediate contradiction or dismissal. The sophisticated response acknowledges their perspective before presenting your own. "I can see why you might view it that way. My experience has led me to a different conclusion." This maintains respect while establishing your position. Here is what the research tells us about the communication patterns of the most successful men. They speak at an optimal rate of 170 to 190 words per minute. They use concrete language when discussing complex topics, and they adjust their communication style based on their audience without compromising their core message. But beyond technique, there is something deeper that sophisticated communication requires: emotional intelligence. This involves empathy, self-awareness, social skills, self-regulation, and understanding what motivates both yourself and others in conversation. You cannot fake this. You develop it through genuine interest in human psychology and consistent practice in reading social situations. If you want to subscribe to this channel and learn how to transform your communication into a powerful tool for success, hit that subscribe button now. Because what I am about to share next will change how you approach every conversation for the rest of your life. The sophisticated man understands that every interaction is an opportunity to either build or diminish his reputation. The way you treat service staff, how you respond under pressure, your reaction when others make mistakes, these moments reveal your true character more than any prepared speech ever could. Remember this: sophistication is not a performance you put on for special occasions. It is a standard you maintain consistently because you understand that character is who you are when nobody is watching, and communication is how that character reveals itself to the world. Small courtesies like punctuality, giving others your full attention during conversations, and demonstrating respect through your words and actions speak volumes about your character and the standards you maintain. These are not outdated concepts. They are the foundations upon which all sophisticated communication is built. The man who checks his phone during conversations, who interrupts others mid-sentence, who speaks only to hear himself talk. He announces to everyone within earshot that he lacks the discipline and awareness that sophistication requires. But here is what most men never realize. The most influential communicators create the impression that they are having a casual conversation with you, even in formal settings. Warren Buffett has mastered this technique in his shareholder letters, making complex financial concepts feel like friendly advice from a trusted mentor. This is the difference between talking at someone and talking with someone. The sophisticated man creates connection, not just conversation. He makes others feel like they are the most important person in the room during their interaction, not because he is performing, but because he genuinely values meaningful human connection. Now, if you have watched this far, you are ready for the most advanced technique in sophisticated communication, the art of strategic vulnerability. This is not about oversharing or seeking sympathy. It is about selectively sharing insights about your challenges or growth in ways that humanize you while maintaining your strength. For example, instead of pretending you have never made mistakes, you might say, "I learned early in my career that the cost of not listening carefully the first time is always higher than taking an extra moment to understand." This reveals wisdom gained through experience without diminishing your authority. The sophisticated man also masters what I call contextual authority. He understands when to lead and when to defer, when to speak with conviction and when to ask questions. In team settings, he steps forward to organize when structure is needed, but creates space for others with specific expertise to guide discussions in their areas of strength. Here is your homework. For the next week, practice the 3-second rule in every conversation. Count 3 seconds before responding to anything anyone says to you. Notice how this changes the dynamic of your interactions. Notice how people start to view you differently when you demonstrate that you are truly considering their words. Also, eliminate these phrases from your vocabulary immediately. To be honest with you, I am not going to lie, and let me be real with you. These phrases suggest that your default state is dishonesty. The sophisticated man speaks truthfully as his standard, not as an exception he needs to announce. The most successful communicators avoid jargon and unnecessary complexity because they understand that confusion is the enemy of influence. Your goal is not to impress people with your vocabulary. Your goal is to communicate ideas so clearly that action becomes inevitable. If this video has shown you how to transform your communication into a tool for commanding respect and opening doors, hit that like button and subscribe to Man of Elegance. Because men who master sophisticated communication do not just speak differently, they live differently. Let me leave you with this truth. Every conversation you have is either building your reputation or diminishing it. There is no neutral ground. The words you choose, the attention you give, the respect you show, these elements combine to create an impression that follows you long after the conversation ends. The sophisticated man understands this responsibility and embraces it. He speaks with intention, listens with purpose, and treats every interaction as an opportunity to demonstrate the excellence that defines his character. Remember, elegance is not about being perfect. It is about being intentional. And when you bring that intention to your communication, you do not just change how others see you, you change how you see yourself. Before you go, tell me in the comments. Words create worlds. Do you agree? I want to hear your thoughts on how sophisticated communication has impacted your success. And if you are ready to become the kind of man who commands respect through his presence and his words, subscribe to this channel and join the community of men who refuse to accept mediocrity in any area of their lives. Because fashion is not luxury, it is power. And the most powerful fashion you can wear is the sophistication of your words and the elegance of your presence. The choice is yours. Will you continue speaking like everyone else, or will you master the communication that separates high-value men from the crowd, the hidden language of physical presence? But sophisticated communication goes far beyond just words. While everyone focuses on what to say, the truly sophisticated man understands that how he holds his body speaks louder than any carefully crafted sentence. Research from Columbia and Stanford reveals that assertiveness issues plague most leaders. But the solution is not about being more aggressive. It is about commanding presence through intentional physicality. Here is what most men get completely wrong about body language. They think it is about intimidation or dominance displays. Wrong. Sophisticated body language is about space, timing, and control. When you slouch, you are not just showing bad posture. You are communicating that you do not respect the people around you enough to bring your best self to the interaction. The brain is hardwired to equate power with the amount of space people take up. Standing straight with shoulders back is not just good posture, it is a power position that maximizes your physical presence and commands respect. But here is the sophisticated twist. You combine this powerful stance with what researchers call warmth cues, genuine smiles, appropriate eye contact, and open gestures that show you have nothing to hide. Think about the most influential men you have encountered. They do not fidget, they do not check their phones during conversations, and they certainly do not fill every silence with nervous chatter. They understand that strategic stillness communicates confidence more effectively than any verbose explanation ever could. The science of commanding attention. Recent studies show that executive presence depends heavily on what researchers call competence cues versus warmth cues. Most men lean too heavily into one or the other, creating an imbalance that undermines their influence. The sophisticated man masters both. Competence cues include power posture, controlled gestures, and what researchers describe as flexed lower eyelid, that intense, focused expression that communicates you are fully engaged and mentally sharp. But competence without warmth makes you seem cold and unapproachable. Warmth cues include nodding appropriately, mirroring the energy of your conversation partner, and using touch strategically. Firm handshakes, supportive gestures, genuine acknowledgement of others. When you combine these elements correctly, you create what researchers call charisma cues, the magnetic presence that makes people want to be around you and follow your lead. Here is a technique that will immediately elevate your presence. The practice of fronting. This means turning your head, torso, and feet toward whoever is speaking, giving them your complete physical attention. Most people only turn their head or lean in slightly, but fronting communicates that this conversation has your total focus and respect. Advanced presence techniques. Voice coach Roger Love identifies 5 vocal characteristics that determine how others perceive your authority: tone, melody, pitch, pace, and volume. The sophisticated man controls all 5 elements consciously. If you speak too quickly, you communicate nervousness or desperation. If you speak too slowly, you seem unprepared or unsure. The optimal speaking rate is 170 to 190 words per minute, fast enough to maintain engagement, slow enough to ensure comprehension. But here is what most voice coaches will not tell you. The most powerful vocal technique is the strategic pause. When you pause before responding to a question, you communicate that you are considering the weight of your words. When you pause in the middle of making a point, you create anticipation and ensure your audience is hanging on every word. Watch how the most sophisticated speakers handle interruptions. They do not raise their voice or compete for attention. Instead, they use what researchers call controlled acknowledgement. They make brief eye contact with the interrupter, give a subtle stop gesture with one hand, and continue their thought. This acknowledges the interruption without surrendering control of the conversation. The psychology of sophisticated listening. Here is where sophisticated communication becomes truly advanced. Understanding that listening is not passive, it is an active demonstration of your intellectual capacity and emotional intelligence. Research shows that men who demonstrate genuine interest in others, perspectives through their body language, and follow-up questions are perceived as more charismatic and trustworthy. But sophisticated listening goes deeper than just nodding and making appropriate sounds. You are reading micro-expressions, identifying the emotional subtext behind what someone is saying, and responding to both the spoken and unspoken elements of their communication. For example, when someone says they are excited about the new project, but their shoulders are tense and their voice lacks energy, the sophisticated man recognizes the disconnect. Instead of responding to their words, he might say, "This project seems like it will require significant coordination. What aspects are you most focused on managing well?" This response acknowledges what they are really communicating while giving them space to express their actual concerns. Strategic emotional intelligence. The most sophisticated men understand that emotional intelligence in communication is not about being soft or accommodating. It is about reading power dynamics and responding strategically. When someone becomes defensive or aggressive in conversation, the unsophisticated response is to match their energy or retreat. The sophisticated response is to remain calm and use what researchers call emotional regulation to maintain control of the interaction. This might sound like, "I can see this issue is important to you. Help me understand what success looks like from your perspective." This response does several things. It acknowledges their emotional investment without becoming defensive. It redirects their energy towards solution finding, and it positions you as the calm, rational leader in the room. The power of contextual adaptation. Here is what separates truly sophisticated communicators from those who simply memorize techniques. They understand that sophisticated communication must adapt to different contexts while maintaining core standards. The way you communicate with your business partner should be different from how you communicate with a potential romantic interest, but certain elements, respect, attentiveness, emotional control, remain constant. In business settings, your communication should demonstrate competence, strategic thinking, and leadership capability. You speak with conviction, ask probing questions, and present ideas with clear logic and supporting evidence. In social settings, your communication should demonstrate cultural awareness, intellectual curiosity, and genuine interest in others. You ask thoughtful questions about people's experiences, share insights that add value to conversations, and create connections that go beyond surface-level interaction. But in both contexts, you maintain the same sophisticated standards. You listen more than you speak. You think before you respond. You treat others with consistent respect regardless of their status. And you never use communication as a weapon to diminish or manipulate others. Advanced conversation management. The truly sophisticated man masters what researchers call conversation orchestration. The ability to guide discussions toward productive outcomes while making others feel heard and valued. This involves understanding the rhythm of effective dialogue, knowing when to introduce new topics, and recognizing when conversations have reached their natural conclusion. One advanced technique is strategic vulnerability, selectively sharing challenges or learning experiences that humanize you without diminishing your authority. Instead of saying, "I made a mistake," you might say, "I learned that approaching it differently would have yielded better results." This demonstrates growth mindset and wisdom gained through experience while maintaining your credibility. Another sophisticated technique is elevation questioning, asking questions that help others think more deeply about their own goals and challenges. Instead of offering immediate solutions, you ask, "What would success in this situation mean for your long-term objectives?" This positions you as someone who thinks strategically and helps others develop their own insights. The integration effect. When all these elements combine, sophisticated verbal communication, intentional body language, strategic emotional intelligence, and contextual awareness, you create what researchers call executive presence. This is not about performing or pretending to be someone you are not. This is about becoming the most sophisticated version of yourself and expressing that sophistication consistently through every interaction. The sophisticated man understands that every conversation is an opportunity to build his reputation, create valuable connections, and influence positive outcomes. He treats casual conversations with the same intentionality he brings to important business meetings because he understands that character reveals itself most clearly in unguarded moments. This is why sophisticated communication becomes a lifestyle, not just a business skill. You cannot turn it on and off, depending on who you are talking to. The man who treats service staff poorly, but speaks eloquently to potential business partners, reveals that his sophistication is performance, not character. The long-term strategic view. Finally, the sophisticated man understands that mastering communication is not about immediate gratification. It is about building a reputation and presence that compounds over time. Every interaction you have creates an impression that influences how others perceive you in future encounters. The investment you make in developing sophisticated communication skills pays dividends throughout your entire life and career. People remember how you made them feel, how you handled difficult situations, and whether your words matched your actions. They remember if you were fully present during conversations or distracted by other priorities. They remember if you asked thoughtful questions or dominated discussions with your own agenda. This is why the sophisticated man approaches every conversation as an opportunity to demonstrate excellence, not because he is trying to impress anyone, but because excellence has become his standard. He communicates with sophistication because that is who he is, not because of what he hopes to gain from any particular interaction. The choice is yours. Will you continue speaking like everyone else, or will you master the communication that separates high-value men from the crowd?